Welcome back. Six current affairs today: Se- security, technology, diplomacy, sociology, labor, and maritime law. Let's go. So first of all, we have Pahalgam attack, terrorism in JNK. So on April 22, 2025, terrorists opened fire on tourists in Basaran Valley near Pahalgam, Anantnag district, Jammu and Kashmir. The attack targeted non-local tourists, one of the deadliest civilian targeted strikes in JNK in recent years. India blamed Pakistan-based militants and suspended the Indus Waters Treaty in response. The resistance front uh, is a shadow outfit of Lashkar-e-Taiba created around 2019 specifically to claim attacks without direct attribution to Pakistan. By using TRF, Pakistan maintains plausible deniability, which is why breaking this proxy architecture through FATF and UN designation mechanisms is India's primary diplomatic strategy. Now, in the Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 has survived all India Pakistan wars since independence. Pahalgam was the first time India suspended it. India's legal argument is material breach. Pakistan's support for cross border terrorism violates treaty obligations. But international law scholars debate whether this justification holds under the Vienna Convention. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act is India's primary counterterrorism law. It, its Section 43D makes bail extremely difficult once a court finds prima facie grounds for the accusation. TRF is the Resistance Front, UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, NIA is the National Investigation Agency, Indus Waters Treaty is 1960 Pact, India, three eastern rivers, Pakistan, three western rivers. AFSPA is the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, and Western Valley is the high altitude meadow near Pahalgam, Anantnag district, JNK. Then we have the regulation of AI content, India's gap. India generated deepfakes and synthetic media. Sorry, AI generated deepfakes and synthetic media are proliferating across Indian digital platforms. Fake videos of politicians, non consensual intimate deepfakes, AI voice clones. India's response has been fragmented. METI issued advisories in November 2023 and March 2024, but there is no dedicated AI content regulation law, while the EU's AI Act came into force in 2024. Now, a political deepfake, a fake video of a politician making a false statement, does not clearly fall under any existing Indian law unless specific cheating or impersonation can be proven. Section 66D punishes cheating by impersonation using a computer resource, but it requires a specific victim to be cheated. General disinformation, deepfakes without a targeted financial victim are harder to prosecute. The EU AI Act classifies AI systems into four risk tiers. Unacceptable risk is banned, high risk audit, high risk requires audit and transparency, and limited risk needs labeling. Minimal risk is self-regulated. India's India AI mission funds AI adoption but has no equivalent risk governance framework yet. Deepfakes are AI generated synthetic media superimposing a person's face or voice onto different content. IT Act Section 6660 is cheating by personation using computer resource, up to 3 years in imprisonment. Safe Harbor Section 79. Intermediaries not liable for third party content if they comply with due diligence and takedown norms. IT intermediary guidelines. Rules governing platform obligations. EU AI Act 2024. World's first comprehensive AI regulation. Four-tier risk-based framework. DPDP Act 2023. Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Governs personal data including face and voice data. And then we have the next topic, which is India Africa Summit, IAFS and critical minerals. So, the India's engagement with Africa through the India Africa Forum Summit has deepened significantly with the fourth IAFS in preparation. The signature recent achievement, India secured the African Union's permanent membership in G20 at the New Delhi Summit in September 2023. Critical minerals, cobalt, lithium, manganese, concentrated in Africa, are now central to India's engagement strategy. The third India Africa Forum Summit in 2015 was India's most ambitious Africa multilateral. All 54 African nations participated for the first time, and India announced $10 billion in lines of credit, plus 50,000 scholarship through ITEC. Under G20 presidency, the African Union, with its 55 member states representing 1.4 billion people, became a permanent G20 member at the New Delhi summit in September 2023. Now, this gives Africa a collective voice in global economic governance for the first time and is India's single biggest G20 legacy achievement. The DRC alone holds about 70% of global cobalt supply, which is essential for EV batteries. Zimbabwe and Namibia have significant lithium. South Africa controls 35% of global manganese. India imports nearly 100% of its cobalt and lithium requirements. Securing African mineral partnership is therefore a direct energy transition imperative, not just a foreign policy. IAFS is the India Africa Forum Summit. Lines of credit is concessional loans by India's Exim Bank to African governments, tied tied to Indian goods and services. African Union is 55 member continental body, became permanent G20 member September 2023. AFCFTA is the African Continental Free Trade Area. ITEC is the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation. And critical minerals is the cobalt, lithium, manganese, essential for energy transition, geographically concentrated. Then we have the Kshatriyization, MN Srinivas and caste mobility. So MN Srinivas sociological concepts, Sanskritization, Kshatriyization, and dominant caste are in the news in the context of communities asserting Kshatriya Rajput identity for political and social mobilization. Now these concepts are foundational. Now Sanskritization equals positional, not structural change. Srinivas defines Sanskritization as lower caste adopting upper caste customs, vegetarianism, rituals, Brahmin Gotras, to claim higher ritual status over generations. Kshatriyization is its martial variant, lower caste adopting warrior customs and claiming Rajput lineage. Crucially, this is positional change. The group moves within the hierarchy, but the hierarchy itself is unchanged. Srinivas' dominant caste concept separates ritual status from actual power. A caste is dominant if it is numerically large in region and owns arable land and holds political influence, regardless of where it sits in the Varna hierarchy. Jat in Haryana, Maratha in Maharashtra, Vokaliga in Karnataka. These are the dominant caste, not upper caste in ritual sense, but enormously powerful in practice. Srinivas described caste mobility from within the system. Ambedkar argued the system itself must be annihilated. In his 1936 text, he contended caste cannot reform from inside because it is backed by religious sanction, requiring conversion and constitutional equality. Now, this is the core theoretical tension in India's caste debate: accommodation within the hierarchy versus dismantling it entirely. Sanskritization is basically process of lower caste adopting upper caste customs to claim higher ritual status. Kshatriyization is the variant of Sanskritization where lower caste adopt Kshatriya warrior customs and lineage claims. Dominant caste is numerically large, land-owning, politically powerful caste. Need not be highest in the Varna. Westernization is deeper structural change from British colonial contact. Rational institutions, education, and professional norms. M. N. Srinivas is the Mysore-born sociologist, coined Sanskritization, and dominant caste concepts, and the positional versus structural change. Is positional is mobility within hierarchy, and structural is dismantling the hierarchy itself. Then we have the India's informal urban workforce. So, India's informal urban workforce, construction workers, street vendors, domestic workers, gig workers, they constitute about 90% of the total workforce and contribute about 50% of GDP. Yet most of these workers have no access to formal social security. The Code on Social Security 2020, which was meant to transform this, has not been operationalized because states have not notified implementing rules. The Periodic Labor Force Survey 2022-2023 puts urban employment at 6.6%, but the bigger structural problem is the quality of employment. Informal workers have no written contracts, no provident funds, no ESI health cover, and no minimum wage protection in many cases. The code consolidates 9 labor laws and for the first time include gig workers and platform workers in the social security framework, requiring platformers like Swiggy and Ola to contribute to a social security fund. Now, but labor is a concurrent list subject. and states must notify their implementing rules. Most have not leaving the code as law on paper without any operational effect. Now, eShram portal, launched in August 2021, created India's first national database of unorganized workers. Over 300 million have registered, but currently, this registration provides only a 2 lakh accidental death insurance benefit. The promise of portable social security across states is unfulfilled because schemes have not been linked to the database. So, PLFS is the Periodic Labor Force Survey published by MOSPI. It tracks employment, labor force participation rate, and unemployment by sector. eShram portal is the national database of unorganized workers. About 300 million plus have registered. Code on Social Security 2020 consolidates 9 laws, include gig workers, requires state rules to operate. BOCW Act 1996 is the Building and Other Construction Workers Act, says funded welfare boards in each state. Gig workers is the platform dependent workers classified as partners, not employees. PM Swanidhi is the PM Street Vendors Atmanirbhar Nidhi, microcredit from 10K to 20K to 50K for street vendors. Then we have the maritime law, the, the UN clause EEZ and Sagar. So the maritime law, anchored in the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea of 1982, governs ocean rights, navigation freedom, and resource claims. India ratified UN clause in 1995 and has a 2.37 million square kilometer EEZ, with China defying UN clause through a nine-dash line, and Houthi attacks disrupting Indian ocean trade. The rules-based maritime order is under stress. An exclusive economic zone under the UN clause gives the country sovereign rights over all living and non-living resources within 200 nautical miles, fisheries, offshore oil and gas, and eventually deep sea minerals. India's EEZ of 2.37 million square kilometers is larger than India's land area, and it includes potential hydrocarbon reserves, fisheries supporting 14 million fishers, and India's ISA pioneer investor allocation for polymetallic nodules. Now, PM Modi's Sagar Doctrine, Security and Growth for All in the Region, announced in 2015, positions India as the Indian Ocean's primary security provider, first responder to disasters, anti piracy coordinator, and maritime intelligence hub through the IFC IOR. This is a claim of regional leadership framed as a service, not dominance, differentiating India from China's base acquisition Tringopols model. China's Nine Dash Line claims approximately 90% of the South China Sea, directly violating the EEZ and continental shelf rights of Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei under UN clause. A permanent court of arbitration ruling in 2016 rejected China's claims. China refused to accept the award. India supports the PCA ruling and consistent with its own interest in a rules-based maritime order that protects its 2.37 million square kilometer EEZ. So UN clause is in UN Convention of the Law of the Sea, 1982. India ratified in 1995. EEZ is the exclusive economic zone, 200 nautical miles, sovereign resource rights, but freedom of navigation retained. Saga Doctrine is the security and growth for all in the region. India's Indian Ocean security framework. Then IT laws is the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, Hamburg, adjudicates maritime disputes under UN clause. IFCIOR is the Information Fusion Center, Indian Ocean region. Gurugram, Maritime Domain Awareness Hub, 23 partner nations. The Blue Economy is the sustainable economic use of ocean resources, fisheries, offshore energy, seabed mining, and maritime trade. 6 topics: security, AI, diplomacy, society, labor, oceans. See you tomorrow. Thank you.